Hello, and welcome to English Spark, the podcast.
You know, one of the most common challenges people face at work is how to politely ask someone for help. And the truth is, it's not always easy. You don't want to sound demanding, and you don't want to disturb people when they're busy.
Exactly, and that's why today we're going to dive deep into a super practical topic: how to politely ask for a favor. Think about it. Whether you're new in an office, trying to get help from a colleague, or even asking a friend for something, knowing the right words can make all the difference.
Right. For example, imagine you just started a new job. You don't know where the printer is, or maybe you don't understand how the coffee machine works. You want to ask, but you also want to show respect. So instead of saying, "Tell me where the printer is," which sounds rude, you could say, "Excuse me, could you help me find the printer?"
That's perfect. It's polite, respectful, and people are much more likely to say yes. And here's another phrase learners should remember: would you mind? For example, would you mind showing me how to use the photocopier? This is such a soft and polite way to ask.
And here's a tip for learners. When you use "would you mind," the verb that follows is always in the ing form. Like, "Would you mind helping me?" Not, "Would you mind help me?"
Exactly. That's a grammar gem right there. And I think listeners will notice how polite phrases can make your English sound not only more natural, but also more professional.
And sometimes even the way you start your request is important. Phrases like, "Sorry to bother you," or "I don't mean to interrupt," but are golden because they prepare the listener. It shows you respect their time.
Yes, and these phrases are perfect in offices where everyone seems busy. Imagine knocking on your boss's door. "I'm sorry to bother you, but could I ask for your help with something?" Doesn't that sound respectful and professional?
It really does. And honestly, when you use polite English, people want to help you more. It's like magic. You get better results just by choosing better words.
So if you're listening right now, remember, asking for a favor doesn't have to be scary. With the right phrases, you can sound confident, kind, and professional every single time. And that's something worth practicing.
And hey, if you're enjoying this conversation, don't forget to share it with friends who are learning English too. They'll thank you for it.
You know, I think many learners worry that asking for a favor will make them look weak, but it's actually the opposite. When you ask politely, it shows confidence, respect, and teamwork. In English-speaking workplaces, people really value collaboration.
That's a great point. And sometimes it's not just what you ask, but how you ask. For example, instead of saying, "Do this for me," you can soften it by saying, "Could you give me a hand with this?" That phrase, "give me a hand," is such a natural way to ask for help.
Yes, and another one I love is, "Would it be possible?" Like, "Would it be possible to explain this form to me?" It's formal, but very polite, and it works great in the office.
And don't forget, "I was wondering if." That's a brilliant phrase to make your request sound gentle. For example, "I was wondering if you could check this email for me before I send it." That sounds so professional.
Listeners, here's something important. English has many softeners, little words and phrases that make your request sound polite. Words like maybe, perhaps, a bit, or even just can change the whole tone. For example, "Could you just explain this part to me?" feels less demanding than "explain this part."
Exactly. And using softeners makes people feel comfortable helping you. It's not only about grammar, it's about culture too. In English-speaking workplaces, politeness and tone are just as important as the actual request.
Right. And another trick is to add appreciation before or after your request. You can say, "I'd really appreciate your help with this," or "Thanks so much for considering it." That little bit of gratitude goes a long way.
Yes, gratitude makes people feel valued. And honestly, who doesn't like to be appreciated?
Absolutely. So if you're learning English, start practicing these magic phrases. "Could you give me a hand with?" "Would it be possible?" "I was wondering if." And don't forget to add thanks. These are the keys to asking favors politely.
And the more you practice them, the more natural they'll sound.
And trust me, people will notice your politeness and professionalism.
That's why I always say, being polite in English isn't just about being nice, it's a powerful communication tool that opens doors. And if you're listening now, you've already taken the first step to sounding more confident at work.
Exactly. And if you're finding this helpful, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who could use these polite phrases too.
You know, one situation where asking for a favor can feel really tricky is when the other person looks super busy. Imagine your colleague typing quickly, their phone is ringing, and you really need their help. That's where polite interruption phrases become lifesavers.
Exactly. And instead of jumping straight in with your request, you can start gently. For example, sorry to interrupt, but could I ask you something? Or I don't mean to bother you, but may I have a moment of your time? These kinds of phrases show respect for their focus.
Yes, and learners should notice how these phrases always begin with an apology or a softener. They prepare the listener, and that makes them much more willing to listen. Another nice one is, if you're not too busy, could you... It sounds considerate.
And what's interesting is that in English culture, politeness often means acknowledging the other person's situation. You don't just say what you need, you show you understand that they may be busy. That balance makes your requests smoother.
Absolutely. And sometimes, even if the person can't help you right away, they'll suggest another option, like, I can't right now, but maybe ask Sarah instead. That's a good reminder for learners. Don't feel bad if someone says no. It's not rude, it's just practical.
Right. And in those moments, it's always smart to respond politely too. Something like, I understand. Thanks anyway. That way, you keep a positive relationship. English isn't just about the request, it's also about how you react.
That's so true. And here's another cultural point. In many offices, people admire coworkers who are polite even under pressure. It shows emotional intelligence. And honestly, it makes people want to help you in the future.
Exactly. So, here's a golden tip for our listeners. Learn at least 3 polite interruption phrases and use them until they feel natural. Like, sorry to interrupt, but I hate to bother you, but, and if you're not too busy, could you... These are classics you can always rely on.
And if you practice them, you'll see how people respond more positively to you. You'll feel more confident, and your English will sound smoother and friendlier.
And hey, listeners, if you're finding these tips useful, remember you can practice them in real life right after this. Try one phrase today and notice the reaction. You'll be surprised how powerful politeness can be.
Yes, and don't forget, if this is helping you, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and keep practicing along with us.
You know what else is interesting? Sometimes asking for a favor isn't about interrupting someone at work. It's about building good relationships. For example, if you're new in an office, asking for small favors like directions, help with a form, or even showing you how to use the printer is a way to connect with people.
That's so true. And small requests are great conversation starters. If you say, "Could you show me where the cafeteria is?" You're not only learning something practical, but you're also opening the door to a friendly chat.
Exactly. And I think learners should remember, when you ask politely, you're not bothering people, you're giving them a chance to be helpful. And most people like helping others when asked nicely.
Yes, and after you get the favor, don't forget to respond with appreciation. A simple, "Thank you so much, I really appreciate it," goes a long way. Notice how that phrase is stronger than just "thanks." Adding "so much" or "I really appreciate it" makes it warmer.
And here's a powerful little trick. Combine a favor with a compliment. For example, you're really good with computers. Would you mind showing me how this program works? That way you're polite and you give a little praise.
Oh, I love that. Everyone likes being recognized. And learners, pay attention. Compliments make your requests more persuasive, but they have to be genuine.
Definitely. And another great phrase for learners is, "Could I trouble you for a moment?" It sounds very polite and professional, and you'll often hear it in offices. For example, "Could I trouble you for a moment to explain this report?"
Yes, that's a perfect example of polite business English. And remember, using these polite forms isn't only about grammar, it's about showing kindness and respect, which are universal.
And honestly, if you get into the habit of asking for favors politely and always saying thank you, people will think of you as respectful, approachable, and easy to work with. That's a big advantage in any job.
Absolutely. And if you're listening now, practice these phrases with a friend, even outside of work. Ask for small things politely, like, could you pass me the salt? Or, could I ask you a quick favor? The more you practice in daily life, the more natural it becomes.
And don't forget, if this conversation is helping you, go ahead and share it with someone who's also learning English. These little lessons can make a big difference.
You know, another situation learners often face is asking for bigger favors, not just small ones. For example, maybe you need someone to cover your shift, review a long report, or lend you something important. In those cases, politeness is even more important.
That's right. And for bigger requests, you can use more formal and careful language. For example, I realize this is a lot to ask, but would you be able to? Or, if it's not too much trouble, could you possibly? These show that you respect the size of the favor.
Yes, and adding phrases like, I completely understand if you're too busy, makes your request sound lighter. For instance, could you possibly take a look at this project for me? I completely understand if you're busy. That way, the other person feels no pressure.
And this is important for our learners. Sometimes you'll hear native speakers use, do you think you could, instead of, could you? For example, do you think you could help me move this desk? It's just another soft, polite way of asking.
Exactly. And when you're asking for a bigger favor, it's good to explain why you need it. People are much more likely to help if they understand the reason. For example, do you think you could check this presentation for me? I really want to make sure it's clear before tomorrow's meeting.
That's such a great point. And when the person agrees, you should definitely show gratitude in a stronger way. Instead of just saying, thanks, you could say, that means a lot to me, or I really owe you one. These are natural, friendly ways to show how thankful you are.
Yes, I owe you one is very common in casual English. It means you help me, so I'll help you in the future. It's a nice, friendly promise. Learners should remember that phrase. It makes your English sound very natural.
And here's another tip. If you're asking for a big favor, sometimes offer something in return. For example, would you mind helping me with this spreadsheet? I'd be happy to buy you a coffee later. That makes the exchange feel fair.
Right, and that shows teamwork and appreciation. English is not just about words, it's about the culture of give and take. People like to know that favors are recognized and, when possible, returned.
So learners, don't be afraid of asking for big favors. Just make sure you use polite, soft language, explain why you need it, and always show gratitude. That's how you build strong and positive relationships at work.
And if you're enjoying this lesson, don't forget, you can practice these phrases with friends or colleagues right after listening, and share this with someone who needs to sound more confident asking for help in English.
You know, one of the most powerful things about learning how to ask for favors politely is that it makes your communication smoother everywhere, not just at work. Think about daily life, asking a neighbor for help, asking a teacher for extra time, or even asking a stranger for directions. The same polite phrases work in all these situations.
That's so true. And for our learners, remember, English has many levels of politeness, and you can choose depending on the situation. With friends, you might say, hey, can you give me a hand with this? But in the office, you'd probably say, would you mind helping me with this?
Exactly. And that flexibility makes your English sound natural. Here's a tip. Always listen to how people around you make requests. You'll start noticing which phrases are casual and which ones are formal. Then you can copy and practice them.
And one more thing, tone of voice matters as much as the words. Even if you use the most polite phrase, if you say it in a rushed or annoyed tone, it won't sound polite. Smile, keep your voice calm, and people will be happy to help.
Absolutely. And I think it's good to remind learners that being polite in English isn't about being weak. It's about being smart. It shows emotional intelligence, respect, and professionalism. People respect you more when you ask kindly.
Yes, and that's the key. Polite English opens doors. It helps you make friends, work better with colleagues, and get the support you need. And honestly, it just makes communication so much more enjoyable.
So, to everyone listening right now, start using these phrases today. Could you give me a hand? Would you mind? I was wondering if... Sorry to interrupt, but try them in real conversations, and you'll see the difference immediately.
And the more you practice, the more natural they'll feel. That's how learning works, step by step, phrase by phrase.
And if you enjoyed this dialogue, don't forget to like this episode, share it with your friends, and leave a comment with your favorite polite phrase. We'd love to see which ones you're going to use first.
You know, something else learners should really think about is how favors build trust. When you politely ask for a favor and then you show gratitude, you're actually creating stronger connections with people. In English-speaking workplaces, trust and relationships are often built on these small, daily interactions.
That's so true. Even something simple like, could you do me a quick favor and send this file, followed by, thanks so much, I really appreciate it, shows you respect the other person's time. And little by little, people see you as someone who's polite, professional, and easy to work with.
Exactly. And learners should also notice that native speakers often keep their requests short, clear, and polite. If you make your request too long or complicated, it can sound confusing. For example, instead of, I really don't want to bother you, but if you happen to have just a little free time, could you possibly, you can simply say, sorry to bother you, but could you help me with this? Short and polite is usually best.
That's a great point. Politeness doesn't mean using 10 sentences. It means choosing the right words. And listeners should practice making their requests clear and simple.
Yes, and here's a practical exercise for everyone listening. Write down 3 things you often need to ask people at work or at school. Then practice saying them with polite phrases. For example, would you mind explaining this? Could you give me a hand with this box? I was wondering if you could check my report.
That's a perfect way to practice. And if you do it out loud, you'll start building confidence. So when you really need to ask, it feels natural.
And remember, listeners, polite English is not just language, it's a skill. The more you use it, the more people will enjoy working with you. And that can change everything about your work or school life.
Absolutely. So go out, try these polite phrases today, and see how they transform your conversations. And of course, don't forget to share this podcast with your friends so they can learn with you.
You know what I find fascinating? The way polite requests in English often sound like an invitation instead of a demand. For example, when you say, would you like to give me a hand with this? It feels friendly, almost like you're inviting the person to join you, not ordering them.
That's a great observation. And it really makes a difference in how people react. A direct request like, help me with this, can feel rude, but when you frame it politely, people feel respected, and they usually say yes.
Exactly. And for learners, here's a great tip. When you're unsure, add a softener. Words like maybe, possibly, or just make your request sound lighter. For example, could you just take a look at this for me? Or maybe you could explain this part. These little words are powerful tools.
Yes, and don't forget intonation. If your voice rises slightly at the end, it sounds more like a request and less like a command. Try saying, could you help me with this? With a friendly, rising tone. It makes you sound approachable.
That's a really important point. Learners sometimes worry too much about grammar, but communication is also about how you say the words. Smiling, keeping a calm tone, and using polite phrases together makes your English shine.
And let's not forget, sometimes the best way to learn is by listening. Pay attention to how native speakers ask for things in TV shows, movies, or even YouTube videos. Write down the phrases you hear and practice them.
Yes, because these phrases are everywhere in daily life. On the bus, would you mind moving over? At a restaurant, could you bring me some water, please? At school, I was wondering if I could ask a question. These are all polite favors we hear every day.
And that's what makes today's lesson so powerful. It's not just for the office, it's for real life too.
Absolutely. So learners, practice asking small favors in English every day. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And remember, share this with someone who also wants to sound polite and confident in English.
You know, one mistake many learners make is thinking that politeness is only about using the word please. Of course, please is important, but it's not enough by itself. The structure, the tone, and even the little words you add around it matter so much.
That's a great point. For example, saying, "Give me the report, please," still sounds like an order. But if you say, "Could you please send me the report when you have a moment?" That feels soft, professional, and polite. Same word, different effect.
Exactly. And it's also about timing. If someone is clearly in the middle of something stressful, the polite thing to do is either wait or use a phrase that shows you notice their situation. Like, "I see you're busy, but when you have a chance, could you..." That's thoughtful and respectful.
Yes. And learners, here's a golden phrase to remember. Whenever you have a moment. It's flexible, it's polite, and it takes away the pressure. For example, could you look at this email whenever you have a moment? That way the other person feels free, not forced.
Another useful phrase is, "if it's convenient." You might say, "If it's convenient, could you review this for me?" That one works really well in formal emails too, not just in spoken English.
And since we're talking about emails, many learners forget that written English also needs politeness. Starting with, "I hope you're doing well," or ending with, "Thanks in advance for your help," makes your message warmer and more human.
Absolutely. And it all comes back to the same idea. Polite requests create good relationships. Whether it's face-to-face, in a meeting, or in an email, being polite makes people see you as professional and considerate.
And the good news is, these polite phrases are easy to practice. You don't need complicated vocabulary, just the right structure and the right tone.
Exactly. So to all our listeners, try replacing one of your direct requests today with a polite phrase like, "Could you please?" "Would you mind?" Or, "Whenever you have a moment, could you..." You'll feel the difference in how people respond.
And don't forget, if this is helping you, share it with your friends who are also learning English. That way, they can start sounding more polite and confident too.